right, diving right in, folks. Today's deep dive is all about a guide you all sent in, and it's fascinating, focusing on how to practice English conversation every single day.
Daily practice, that's dedication.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, I bet a lot of our listeners out there, you guys are probably looking to really level up your speaking skills, right?
Okay.
I'm thinking maybe some of you have trips coming up, maybe some big presentations at work.
Those are definitely situations where you want to feel confident speaking.
For sure. And that's where this guide gets interesting. It actually highlights listening, can you believe it?
Yeah.
As the secret weapon to becoming fluent.
It's so true. It's funny how we often just kind of jump right into speaking practice, right? When we think about learning a new language.
Yeah, I get that.
But this guide flips that whole idea on its head.
Love it.
It's like, imagine you're building a house. You need that strong foundation first.
Yes, foundation, yeah.
That's your listening skills. And then you can build up to that eloquent, amazing speech.
Oh, I love that analogy. It makes total sense. It's like we need to absorb that rhythm, that flow of English before we can even start to, produce it on our own.
Exactly. And the guide, it goes even deeper. It talks about deep learning.
Deep learning. Okay, I'm intrigued.
Think of it this way. It's like you reach this point where you're not even just repeating phrases anymore. You're using them effortlessly in, all kinds of different situations.
Effortlessly, that's the dream.
Right. Like a musician, they practice those scales over and over.
Oh, yeah, scales, I can relate to that.
And then suddenly they can just express themselves freely through the music.
So it's about what? Actively engaging with what you're hearing, really internalizing it.
Exact.
This makes me think about the old school rote memorization.
Oh, yeah.
Is deep learning different from that?
It is. Rote memorization, it can help for vocabulary, but to be fluent, you need a deeper understanding.
Makes sense.
And deep learning helps you build almost like a muscle memory for the language.
Muscle memory, I like that. So what does that actually look like when you're practicing?
Okay, imagine you're learning the phrase, "It's a pleasure to meet you."
Classic.
Right. Deep learning means you don't just memorize those words, you can use that phrase naturally and confidently in 5 different situations.
5.
Formal.
Formal dinner, casual introduction, on a video call, you name it.
So it's about reaching that level where it just flows.
Exactly.
This reminds me of the guide's advice about making learning a part of everyday life.
Yes.
Like using those little pockets of time we all have.
The little moments.
Yeah, like when you're on the bus or even just waiting in line for coffee.
Exactly. Those are opportunities.
Turn those moments into learning. I like it.
It challenges you to rethink your routine, see where those hidden opportunities are.
So if you love cooking, you could listen to an English cooking show while you're making dinner.
There you go.
Or, I don't know, if you're into fitness, you could follow along with a workout video in English.
Perfect examples. It's all about personalizing it.
Yep.
Love that.
Yeah.
But how do you actually practice conversations if you're not, actually talking to someone?
Well, the guide gets into some specifics. There's shadowing, where you listen to native speakers and try to, mimic their pronunciation.
Mimic, their shadow, I get it.
Right, and their intonation in real time.
Okay, that's pretty challenging, but I can see how it would help.
It pushes you, and you can record yourself speaking, then analyze it to see where you can improve.
That's a smart way to get practice even when you're on your own.
Definitely.
And speaking of practice, we can't forget about the 75 conversation topics this guide covers.
Ah, yes. The 75 topics. They go from everyday stuff to some really thought-provoking things.
It's a wide range.
It shows you just how many different situations you might need English for.
I know we won't have time to go through all 75 today.
Not a chance.
But I did take a peek at the list, and wow, there are some real gems in there.
I know. There were 2 that really caught my eye. Plastic surgery and technological advancements.
Ooh, those sound interesting.
They really show how, learning English can open up these whole new worlds of conversation.
Deeper discussions.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exploring all sorts of different viewpoints.
Before we jump into those topics, though, let's just do a quick recap of what we've covered so far.
Sounds good.
We started by talking about how important listening is as a base for becoming a good speaker.
That foundation.
Exactly. And then we got into this idea of deep learning, that focused kind of repetition.
The key to fluency.
Totally. And we talked about how all those little moments in our day, like waiting in line or even just doing chores,
The hidden opportunity.
they can become these amazing chances to really learn.
Every moment counts.
But here's where things get even more interesting.
The guide goes into these two super interesting topics, plastic surgery and technological advancements.
Really?
Yeah. It's cool how they've, made them into actual conversation examples,
I'm curious about that because, I mean, how do they make those topics approachable? For someone learning English, I feel like it could get a little complicated.
Right. I mean, those topics could be a little sensitive.
Yeah.
But they do a good job breaking it down.
Okay, how so?
Like for plastic surgery, they focus on phrases you might use if you're, talking about appearances.
Appearances.
Oh, or like how to give your opinion politely.
So you don't accidentally offend anyone?
Exactly. Or even just asking someone about their experiences, but in a respectful way.
It's about having those conversations in a way that makes sense for the culture.
Right, like navigating a sensitive topic.
Got it, got it.
And then for technological advancements, they focus on all the vocab for gadgets and the internet, social media.
The stuff we use every day?
Exactly. You'd probably have those conversations in English all the time.
Makes sense.
They even have phrases for how to geek out about a new phone or something.
Oh, that's fun.
Or explain how to use an app.
That's so practical. I bet that would be super helpful for someone traveling or even just, chatting online. It seems like with this approach, it's not just about learning the words. It's almost like they're teaching you how to think in English.
You're right. The guide kind of pushes you to think about things from different angles, form your own opinions.
And then how to express them naturally in conversation.
Exactly.
This goes back to that deep learning idea we were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
It's not just memorizing phrases. It's like really getting them.
It's about understanding and applying.
Totally. And what I find really insightful is this guide suggests anyone can become fluent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, with the right approach, with dedication.
It's not about being naturally gifted.
It's about effort, putting in the work.
Exactly. It's a mindset shift.
And that can be really empowering,
Totally. It takes the pressure off.
Like, oh, I'm not good at languages.
Right. Instead, it's you can do this.
If you have the right mindset, if you work at it,
It opens up a world of possibilities.
not just with languages.
With anything.
That's a great point. So in this deep dive, we've really seen how listening and speaking go hand in hand.
They do.
We often think language learning, it's all about talking, writing.
Yeah.
But this guide is saying, no, 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 listening is the foundation.
It's like learning to dance.
Oh, I like that.
You can't move gracefully if you're not listening to the music.
You need that rhythm.
Exactly. Same with English. You can't speak fluently if you don't understand those nuances.
The pronunciation, the tone.
Right. Those pauses, those little inflections.
It's about really immersing yourself.
Surrounding yourself with the language.
Listening to how native speakers use it in different situations.
Absorbing it all.
Our brains are actually wired to learn this way.
They are.
Think about how kids learn their first language.
It's all about listening at first.
Yeah, they spend years listening.
Years before they even say a word.
It's incredible.
But they pick it up so naturally just by listening and observing.
You're so right.
Yeah.
So why do we, abandon that when we try to learn a second language later?
It's a good question.
What do you think?
Maybe we get too focused on, the rules, the grammar.
The mechanics of it.
Yeah, all those vocabulary lists, the sentence structures.
We forget language is about connecting.
It's communication, sharing ideas.
And to connect, to communicate, we need to listen.
Just as much as we need to speak.
So as we wrap up this part of our deep dive into this guide, what's the one thing you want our listeners to take away today?
I think it's this. Embrace the power of listening.
Listening, yes.
Don't underestimate it. It's crucial for fluency.
It's like laying that strong foundation before building a house.
Exactly.
You can't have amazing speech without understanding the language first.
And that comes from deep, attentive listening.
So it's like we have to retrain our brains
Kind of, yeah.
to think of listening as an active thing.
It's not just something happening in the background.
You're really participating.
Exactly. And the great thing is, those opportunities are everywhere.
They are.
Think about it when you're around English speakers.
Okay, like where?
At a cafe, in a park, watching a movie, anything like that.
Instead of just tuning it out.
Yeah. Try to really listen to the details.
How they're speaking.
Yeah. The rhythm, the intonation, how they emphasize words.
Turn everyday life into a lesson.
Exactly. And this guide, it even suggests shadowing.
Oh yeah, we talked about that.
Where you repeat what you hear.
to really get those nuances.
Pronunciation, the rhythm, all of it.
So first we train our ears, and then
Then comes the deep learning.
the practice, the repetition.
Make the language your all.
It's like we're absorbing those melodies.
Through listening.
And then we learn to play them ourselves.
Express yourself.
More fluently, more confidently.
It's a process, but it's a cool one.
And I love how this guide emphasizes the joy of it all.
It shouldn't be a chore.
It's about celebrating those little victories along the way.
Those are the things that keep you going.
Like nailing a tricky pronunciation.
Yes.
Or using a new phrase in a real conversation.
Or even understanding a joke.
Those little wins keep you motivated.
They really do. And I think that sense of accomplishment, that's what leads to fluency.
This whole deep dive has really changed how I think about language learning.
Me too.
It's not just about, checking skills off a list.
It's a mindset.
It's continuous learning, continuous growth.
And the best part is that mindset, it goes way beyond language.
It does, doesn't it?
This guide is about English, sure, but those principles, they're universal.
Deep learning, listening, practice, finding the joy in it.
It all applies.
So if it works for language, imagine what it could do for, I don't know, anything else you want to improve.
Anything.
Learning an instrument, a new skill for work, even relationships.
It's about recognizing mastery comes from consistency.
It's not those bursts of effort, it's the steady work.
Driven by curiosity, by that desire to grow.
So to wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you with a question to think about.
All right, I like it.
What if you applied those principles of deep learning to something else in your life? What would change?
How could you use those ideas, the listening, the repetition, the joy,
It's about looking at challenges in a whole new way.
and believing you can learn, you can grow?
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone.
Doing fun.
We hope this inspires you to approach your language learning and all your learning with that curiosity, with that commitment to deep, joyful learning